What's up, everyone? Welcome back to C&D Sports. Today, we've got our MLB postseason preview today. We've got our full bracket giving you predictions of who we think is going to come out on top in each series, and ultimately who's coming home with this year's Fall Classic. And plus, we've got our entire matchup by matchup analysis here. We're going to break down all the matchups here. We're going to break down all the teams and give you the knowledge that you need to know heading into this year's postseason. There's more matchups here, more baseball. Super exciting for a baseball fans like ourselves. So let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it, and we'll kick it off with the AL wildcard race. You've got Toronto over Seattle, and you've got Cleveland over Tampa Bay. Let's start off with Toronto, Seattle.
Yeah, both of these series, I have the winner coming out on top 2-1. So I think both of them will go the full distance of the best of three series. And we'll start with Toronto, Seattle here. And I think the big difference between these two teams is hitting. I think you could give Seattle maybe a slight edge when it comes to pitching, but I think hitting, it's very clearly Toronto is the better hitting team right now. Toronto ranks first in the American League in OPS this year, which is second overall in the MLB, and first in the AL, first in the league when it comes to average, hitting 264 this year. Whereas Seattle in both of those ranks sixth in the American League, 13th in the MLB, 14th in the American League in average, 26th in the MLB, respectively. So I think Seattle's just come in, their offense has really come in scuffling in September. Toronto's answered the call when there were doubts coming into September, especially with how strong Baltimore was, that Toronto, there was an opportunity that any one of these four teams, but Toronto especially could have been that odd one out, missing the postseason again. They really answered the call. Big performances from guys like Bo Bichette, big performances from depth guys like Whit Merrifield as well, which really this offense really pushed this team forward. And there's a reason why they are arguably the most lethal offense in the American League, or one of. I think pitching is where it gets a little dicey for both sides. I'd give the edge to Seattle in terms of consistency. Alek Manoah, I think, is the best pitcher in this series, which bodes well for the Jays, as they're going to be throwing him out game one against Luis Castillo. So that kind of counters one of the 1-2 punch really with Castillo and Robbie Ray that you do kind of worry about. As it's the Robbie Ray start, which will likely be in game two, is the reason why I'm giving Seattle one game, because I think Robbie Ray and Ross Stripling, I think Robbie Ray comes out on top there. I think his stuff is good, as well as he knows this lineup as well, as he was the Cy Young winner last year with the Blue Jays. So, but in terms of pitching, they're both kind of middle ground teams in the American League, in the MLB as a whole, with Seattle kind of pushing towards that top five in some categories like ERA, opposing average, and WHIP. So I think it really comes out to who's going to hit and who's going to hit better. And I think it'll be the Blue Jays, especially considering they've got that all important home field advantage in the wild card series.
All right, now Cleveland, Tampa Bay.
Now, Cleveland, Tampa Bay. Now, I first have to apologize here. When we made our AL postseason contenders here, I didn't talk about the AL Central at all. So I did not talk about Cleveland, because at the time, the division was very weak. And Cleveland, I wasn't even convinced they were going to make the playoffs, let alone win their division, let alone host, kind of be in the spot where they're hosting a good team like Tampa Bay, who I thought at start of September had a shot at winning the American League East with how the Yankees were playing. That being said, I think Cleveland is the stronger team here. Cleveland coming out on top 2-1. And here's why. Now, both of these teams don't do well in terms of OPS right now. Both of them ranked towards the bottom, in the bottom half of the American League, in the bottom half of the league as a whole. Cleveland having a slightly better OPS, but there's one thing: when Cleveland is getting on base, it's because they're hitting. They're one of the best hitting teams in the American League right now, ranking fourth, hitting at a 253 clip right now. You can't argue that Cleveland hits. And when you have guys like Stephen Kwan, guys like Owen Miller that are hitting at these high clips, that ultimately hits more often than not, hits are what are going to win you ball games in the postseason. And I think that becomes important when you have an unpredictable pitching staff like Tampa Bay. They're going to throw out a lot of relievers. There's going to be a lot of, it's a very analytically focused team. So Kevin Cash is going to try to make changes all too often, to really kind of throw loops so that the opposing team doesn't get comfortable with guys. So I think Cleveland, in that case, I would give them the edge in terms of hitting right now. And then it comes down to pitching here. Tampa Bay traditionally has been a better pitching team. I think, coming into September, Shane McClanahan was kind of the front runner here, or was one of the front runners, I'll say, with Justin Verlander for the Cy Young. Injuries and just a few poor starts here is kind of dampen that for him. But so I would give the edge to Cleveland in terms of pitching, because in the last 30 games, Cleveland ranks second in the American League when it comes to ERA, third in the American League when it comes to opposing average, first in the American League when it comes to walks and hits per innings pitched here. Whereas Tampa Bay in these categories, in the last 30 days, seventh in the American League in ERA, eighth in the American League in opposing average, and fourth in the American League in WHIP this year. So I think it's important that that stat tells me that Cleveland, not only pitching wise, but as a whole, they're coming in very strong. As again, there was a reason why we didn't consider them a threat at the start of September, and there's a reason why now all of a sudden I have them winning a playoff series here against a very strong Tampa Bay Rays team, who are a year removed from being the best team in the American League and 2 years removed from a World Series appearance. It's because they're coming into this hot and Tampa Bay is not. As that's going to be the big trend. Who's got the momentum right now? And Cleveland does. And when you have two teams that are pretty evenly matched throughout the entire season, it's going to come down to who has the momentum and who's doing it better right now, who's in that groove, because Tampa Bay kind of has to pick up the pieces a little bit if they want to make a run. But I'm not counting out Tampa Bay. They are a team that traditionally has been there and done that. So I think they are capable of doing it. But right now, I really like the way that this Guardians team is coming into the postseason.
And with that, let's move on over to the NL wildcard race. And this one's a little more decisive. You've got the Mets taking out the Padres in two, and the Cardinals taking out the Phillies also in two.
Yeah, and I think it's two very different reasons why I see sweeps in these best of three wildcard series here. Is we'll start with the Mets and the Padres, the 4-5 matchup here. First of all, you just look at the standings, and the Mets are a 100-win team, and the Padres are not. And I think that's one thing. That's not what I'm basing my whole argument here off of. But the New York Mets, they rank top 5 in most, if not all, of the major hitting and pitching categories this year. Third in the National League in OPS, first in the National League when it comes to average. So this team can hit, whereas San Diego ranks 9th and 8th in those hitting categories. And I think pitching is what is going to be the big X factor. As we'll really just put stats aside here, because in a best of 3 series, you're not going to see everything that would culminate to these stats, because in this case, you're only going to see 2 pitchers, and those 2 pitchers are going to be Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. And I think it doesn't really take stats to show you that more often than not, those are going to result in wins, despite the fact San Diego has a high-powered offense led by Manny Machado, led by Juan Soto, led by Josh Bell, sorry. They're all good hitters, but at the end of the day, Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer have made a living with getting good hitters out, and I feel that they will continue to do that. Now, I will say that the last start against Atlanta for Jacob deGrom, he picked up the loss, 3 earned runs. I was watching a podcast the other day, and a Mets expert said it was the first time in years that Jacob deGrom has shown some sort of humanity, that he's not a robot out there. But when humanity is just giving up 3 earned runs and being tagged for a loss, that's a pretty good bad night for you. So I think at the end of the day, Jacob deGrom is coming in like he hasn't missed a beat after his injury. Max Scherzer, again, is coming in strong, hasn't missed a beat after his injury. I think these guys are fresh, and I think that this Mets team is hungry. You'll see that the Mets blew a 10.5 game lead in the National League East this year, and I think that'll only come as motivation to get back to that status that they once were, and to be that team that can make a deep push. And I expect them to be poised to make a deep push here, especially being led by, again, Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer.
Now let's move over to the Cardinals Phillies series.
And the Cardinals Phillies series, it's not as open and shut as the other one. When you don't have a DeGrom and Scherzer in this series here, you kind of have to do a little bit of a deep dive into the performance of these two teams. But again, I have the Cardinals edging out the Phillies here, not edging out the Phillies. I have the Cardinals winning outright 2-0 against the Phillies here. And I think it just comes down to the St. Louis Cardinals are a more cohesive unit this year. Hitting wise, both of these teams are fairly the same. In OPS, St. Louis ranks just a place higher than Philadelphia, as they're fourth in the National League in OPS. But in terms of hitting for average, they're both pretty even. Philadelphia having the 1 point batting edge overall this season. So, and they all have pieces, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado on the side of the Cardinals. You look at the Phillies having guys like Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto. There are high-powered guys in both offenses here. And I think pitching, it's the exact same thing. The Cardinals have a better ERA in terms of their National League standings. Philadelphia has a better opposing average and a better whip, which I think are probably the more important stats when it comes to postseason play here. But at the end of the day, the Cardinals went out, took care of business, and they're coming into the postseason, I think, on a better note than Philadelphia. Let's not forget, Philadelphia could have clinched. They were the last team to clinch a playoff spot here. They could have clinched a while ago if they had taken care of business against teams that they were better than. They got swept by the Chicago Cubs, a very bad baseball team. And I think, again, we talked about it in the Cleveland series. Who's coming in with the momentum right now? And I don't think it's Philly. I think the Cardinals are also going to be riding the high of the fact that Albert Pujols is having a historical season. It's the last year of Pujols. It's the last year of Molina. Very well could be the last year of Adam Wainwright too. There's just a special buzz around the Cardinals right now. And I don't want to base my picks just off of historic seasons like that. But I think when you have two teams that are dead even like this, you have to look for those little things. And I think the momentum right now is just shifted towards St. Louis. And again, St. Louis is a division winner, and there's a reason why they're a division winner. They're a solid, cohesive unit. They can hit from 1 to 9. They have pieces that I feel a little more confident in their rotation. We talked about it in our NL postseason contenders video there. I like a rotation with Wainwright, with Montgomery, with Quintana, with Miles Michaelis, as opposed to a Philly rotation that once you get past Aaron Nola and maybe Ranger Suarez, I'm not confident with guys like Noah Syndergaard. I'm not confident with guys like Kyle Gibson and so on. I think there's more questions around Philadelphia. I liked Philadelphia's bullpen. Their bullpen has been a big reason why they've kind of scuffled in these last few weeks of the season. I like their bullpen a little more than St. Louis's bullpen, but right now, St. Louis's bullpen is more informed, just like St. Louis as a team is more in form right now. So that's why I'm going St. Louis pretty decisively at home, 2-0 over the Phillies.
So now let's move on over to the division series. You have the Astros over the Jays 3-1 and the Guardians over the Yankees 3-2. So let's start off with the Astros Jays series.
Yeah, so with the Astros and the Jays, I don't think there's really a whole lot to argue here. The Astros are filthy. And this is no disrespect to the Jays at all. I think the fact that they were able to put it together and be one of the best teams in September leading into this, the Jays have good pieces, and I think ultimately that Alek Manoah start is not going to come against the likes of Verlander. It's not going to come against the likes of Framber Valdez in all likelihood. So I think that's where they're going to get the win, because I do think that Alek Manoah is, one of the top 3 pitchers this season in the American League. But I think guys like Verlander and Framber Valdez could also be in that top 3 conversation. So, I think that's where the Jays will pick up their win. but Houston's pitching is just, Houston and the LA Dodgers are the two best pitching teams. So when you have to play one of those two, it doesn't matter that the Jays offense, is ranked better, although this Houston offense is still a top five offense in the American League, and is still definitely a upper echelon offense league wide. Um, I think the pitching is what's going to cause problems, and that's what's been pitching has been the most notable thing about World Series champions. In the past, you look at guys like Max Fried and you look at guys like Charlie Morton last year when the Braves won it. These were guys that went out and shoved in and night out. So I think you have that same look with Houston. So I'm not going to overanalyze it here. So I think Houston is the better team. I think Toronto is more susceptible to the swing and miss stuff. And I think Houston is a team that, lives off that swing and miss stuff with guys like Verlander and Valdez. So leading the charge for that rotation. So I'm not going to look too deep into it. I think Houston's the better team. And I think Alek Manoah is going to be a reason the Jays pick up a win there. But I think Houston winning a best of five series 3-1 seems right to me.
All right. And then you have Cleveland over New York, 3-2.
Again, I got to apologize for that Cleveland take a few weeks ago because I really do believe in this Cleveland team. And I will say I was pretty harsh on the Yankees before, and I'm not going to apologize for being harsh on the Yankees. They were bad coming into September. They've been bad after the All-Star break this year. They were on a historic pace to start the year, and they've really come back down to earth. And injuries have played a huge part in why the Yankees are that low. And the reason I have Cleveland here is for the same reasons I have them beating Tampa Bay. And it's the fact that Cleveland has the momentum right now. They rank better than the Yankees, especially in terms of pitching in the last 30 days, in all the major categories, ERA, opposing average, whip. And I think that'll play a huge role in neutralizing what can be a very scary Yankees offense. Now, albeit Aaron Judge is the likely MVP this year. If I had a vote for MVP, he would be. So it can be hard to neutralize a guy like that. But if you can, the other eight guys in the order, if you can handle them, and I think guys like Shane Bieber, I think guys like Aaron Savale, I think guys like Tristan McKenzie, I think they're all capable of doing that. Cal Quantrill. So I think that Cleveland can catch the Yankees on a few bad days here in this series, catch them in a bad series, and I think that they have the poise to be one of those underdog teams that can really make a name for themselves that someone has counted out, but they've got all that momentum coming into the postseason, and I expect that to continue. I do think the Yankees, though, this could go either way, because despite the struggles, I can't discount the fact that Garrett Cole is still one of the best pitchers in baseball. I can't discount the fact that Nestor Cortez is having a great year. I can't look past guys in the bullpen like Clay Holmes. I can't look past guys in the bullpen like Jonathan Loaizaga, who are solid options in the back. This is a Yankees team that if everything clicks, they can hang with just about anyone right now. And offensively, Judge, Stanton, Donaldson, LeMahieu, they're all guys that have that pedigree, that they've been to the CS. They've been knocking on the door at the World Series. So this is a team that I could very well see getting back there. But right now, I just like the way that this Cleveland team plays as a complete unit. I think they know what they are. They know that on paper, they're not like on paper. You look at these two teams and, Cleveland doesn't blow you away. But I think they're just well managed with Terry Francona. He knows what he's got in his guys, and they'll come out and they'll just take care of business in a way that, won them their division this year. And there's a reason why this team won 90 plus games this year. This is a good ball club, and I don't think that you can take them lightly. And again, they're coming into this series with the momentum. So I'm going to take Cleveland 3-2 as my they're a sleeper pick here.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go with the sleeper here to play the Astros in the ALCS.
All right. Now let's move on over to the NL Division Series. And you have the Mets beating out the powerhouse Dodgers and the
Dude.
Braves beating out the Cards. So let's start with the Mets Dodgers.
Yeah, the Mets Dodgers. This might be my most interesting take here. considering the Dodgers, first team since the early 1900s to win 111 games in the National League, five shy of the record that the 1909 Cubs and the 1909 Cubs and the 2001 Mariners team set for league wide wins. This is a great ball club, and this is nothing against the Dodgers here. This is the series that I will be most tuned in to watching when you have stars on. This is just two star-studded lineups, two star-studded rotations, star-studded bullpens. That everything about this series just screams, historically great postseason series. I'm going with the Mets here because, again, DeGrom and Scherzer are going to be starting two games that series. And DeGrom and Scherzer in the postseason, I don't really see a situation where the Dodgers can win. Maybe if they throw out Julio Urias and if they strategically align it that Julio Urias comes out. But in all honesty, Julio Urias is going to come out game one. Clayton Kershaw is going to come out game two. I could see the Dodgers going up 2-0 in this series, because then after that, DeGrom will likely be game three. Scherzer will likely be game four. If they continue with the regular rest rotation and DeGrom and Scherzer pitching in the wild card game, it'll likely line up Chris Bassett and Carlos Carrasco for games one and game two, which I think this Dodgers offense can get to. But I think the Mets can then neutralize that early series momentum there, get this series back to 2-2. And I like the Mets pitching depth more than I like the Dodgers rotational depth here. Because once you get past Urias and Kershaw, you're then putting your trust into guys like, is Tony Gonsolin going to be back? I don't know. If Tony Gonsolin's going to be back, I think that could swing the Dodgers series the other way. But then you move to Dustin May, you move to Tyler Anderson, you move to Andrew Heaney. All are great pitchers, but I think that Bassett and Carrasco are a little more established in the back end of that rotation. So, and I think in terms of offenses, yeah, the Dodgers have Mookie Betts, the Dodgers have Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers have Max Muncy, the Dodgers have Trey Turner. But if you can take two games away from them there and bring that to a 5-game series, I like the Mets lineup versus the Dodgers pitching more than I like the Dodgers lineup to the Mets pitching. So I think it'll be a close series. And you know what? I'm going to take the Mets here. But again, the Dodgers are a team that 111 wins. They could power their way easily to a World Series, and I wouldn't be shocked. But you know what? I'm going to keep it interesting. I'm going to keep it a little spicy here. I'm going to go with the Mets over the Dodgers here, 3-2.
And that's if they beat out the Padres. Now
That's if they beat out the Padres. Yeah.
Let's move over to Atlanta, St. Louis.
St. Louis. And I think this is where the historic run ends for the nostalgic Cardinals team here. This is a Braves team, reigning World Series champion. This was a team that only won 88 games last year, so they have significantly improved that record. I think this is a much better team than it was last year. You saw them when they went on their run. They did it without guys like Ronald Acuna, albeit they don't have Freddie Freeman this time around, but Matt Olson has been a very suitable replacement there. They now have a more consistent outfield being led by a guy like Michael Harris. This is a solid ball club. This is the ball club that ranks in the top half of the American League in both pitching and hitting this year. And I just think this team is, because I don't want to dive too much into stats here, because I think Atlanta is just, you look at where they stand in every single category, and they're just better than the Cardinals. This is just a better team than the Cardinals. I can't really make an argument, especially for a team that made up a 10.5 game deficit to win their division. And not only did they do that, and when it mattered most this weekend, they swept the Mets to really take control of that division, and then ultimately win that division. This is a team that knows how, when the chips are down and they're backed up against a wall, this is a team that knows how to get the job done. And, I'm going to continue to ride guys like Max Fried, like Charlie Morton, and on the offensive side, like Matt Olson, like Ronald Acuna. This is a sound Atlanta team that I think is poised to make yet another deep run. This is a team that was, just a game short of the World Series in 2020 over and won the World Series last year. This is a team that is used to being there late in the postseason. And I think the expectation is still the same. And these guys are just as hungry as they were last year.
All right. So winning the AL, you have the Astros taking out the Guardians.
I do. And I think it'll be, pretty handily 4-1 here. Again, the Astros are just the better team. This is a juggernaut of a team right now. So again, I'm going to take the guys like Framber Valdez, Justin Verlander, Lance McCullers, and you can really pick who you want to put in that last spot there in that rotation. I'm definitely going to take that rotation over that. I'm going to take that lineup over Cleveland being led by, possible MVP candidate in Yordan Alvarez, having guys like Jose Altuve, having guys like Alex Bregman. I think this is where having big names makes a bit more of a difference. And I think, the Guardians have had a great year, but I'm not going to look too deep into this. Houston is now poised to make a run back to the World Series, and we'll see what happens this time around.
All right. Then between the Mets and Braves, you have the Braves coming out on top, ending a very nice run.
I do. And again, the Braves have been a better team than the Mets. And I don't think that changes. I think the Mets will definitely be hungrier considering that, they lost everything to the hands of the Braves. It's like a real Thanos Avengers moment here. They took everything from them. So I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Braves here. I'm not going to look too deep into it here. Both are very evenly matched teams here. I just like that the consistency of that Braves offense. I think I really like Michael Harris, and I think he's going to be a difference maker. I really like guys like Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna being in the postseason this year. I think is going to be a huge X factor, a different look that a lot of these teams did not get to see in the past here. Again, the Mets 2 wins there. It's likely because DeGrom and Scherzer went out and did their business, but this is a Braves team that has seen both of those guys this year. They know what they're going to expect. So it's not as much of a gimme with those games as, say, the Padres series or the Dodgers series, where they haven't gotten good looks at those guys this season. Again, I'm not going to look too deep into it here. I think the Braves have positioned themselves very nicely to head back to the World Series and ultimately bring us a World Series rematch from last year.
All right. Let's say the Dodgers get to the CS and face the Braves. Is it still the same result for you? Braves over Dodgers?
I think it's definitely tougher. Um, I would still opt for the Braves over the Dodgers. I think it would probably go 7 games here. So the reason I like the Braves so much is we talked about it in our NL contenders video here. The Braves are a complete team. They've got a complete offense. They've got a complete rotation. And they've got that complete bullpen, which we haven't really touched on right now. Kenley Jansen closing. You have guys like AJ Minter still there. You added a guy like Raisel Iglesias. You added a guy like Colin McHugh. You still have Tyler Matzik there. This is a team that even if their starters get off to issues with a high-powered offense like the Mets, or in this case, a high-powered offense like the Dodgers, they have those shutdown guys that are able to come in and stabilize the mess or even neutralize the mess here and give that offense a chance to win. And it is an offense that, stacked up against the Dodgers probably have the edge in offense. The Dodgers have a ridiculously talented offensive team that was a huge part of why they won 111 games this year. But again, I think it comes down to I like the Braves rotation more, and I like the Braves bullpen more than I like the Dodgers bullpen. The Dodgers bullpen was great this year, and I don't think it gets the credit it deserves. I think in our contenders video, I didn't give the Dodgers bullpen the credit it deserved. Guys like Evan Phillips, Alex Vesia, they've been great, and they're well-known guys like Craig Kimbrell have not. So it can't all be based off of who's the most well-known, but I think Atlanta has that perfect mix of well-known guys who have that postseason pedigree and overall performance this year. That last five in their bullpen has performed well, and I think that's where the edge comes. And you're going to look once you get to the championship series, once you get to the World Series, you look for these little things that can really give teams that X factor. And I think that Braves bullpen is a huge X factor when they have to play the likes of, good rotations like the Mets and good rotations in lineups like the Dodgers, like the Astros. So that's why I like the Braves so much in this situation.
So, meeting in the finals, you have a rematch between the Astros and Braves, and in 7 games, you have a full redemption arc for the Houston Astros.
I do. I think Dusty Baker finally gets his ring here, and I think it may be a shocking pick after all the praise that I just gave the consistency of this Atlanta team and how complete this Atlanta team is. I do think that they've met their match when it comes to the Astros, and I think in terms of offense, this Astros team is just as good as this Atlanta offense, if not better. In terms of bullpen, maybe you give Atlanta the slight edge, but I think this Houston bullpen has just been fantastic this year. So again, if I think that's just even there, and I like this rotation. This Houston rotation being led by, I've said it all the time, being led by Verlander, being led by Framber Valdez. They have those two guys that can really make a difference. And then you hand it off to the likes of guys like Lance McCullers after that, who again, very capable of being there. They are guys that have Houston's been to at least the CS in 5 straight seasons now. They know what it's like to be here year in and year out. I mean, so do the Braves to a lesser extent. But the Atlanta Braves, Houston Astros, I think this will be great for baseball. It'll be really the making of a new historic rivalry here. But again, I like the Astros to finally overcome here and really make a name for themselves. Again, considering that their last World Series was a bit tarnished by the cheating allegations in 2017. They can't argue with this one. There are new guys on this team, guys like Kyle Tucker, who have been huge parts of this organization this year, that weren't a part of that. And I think it'll be almost redemption for guys like Jose Altuve, again, for guys like Justin Verlander, who were there when all this happened. And this is a chance for Houston to really almost make things right in the baseball world here, and win one the right way. And I think they're very capable of doing it. I think this is the most complete Astros team we've seen in their stretch of just overall dominance since 2017. So I think, that being said, the completeness of this team up against the completeness of the Braves team, I think the Astros are the more complete team. And I think that's why they come out on top.
And there you have it. There's still a lot of baseball left to be played, and we'll be here to report on it and to give you some more takes along the way. What's your bracket looking like? Who are your picks? Who do you think we have wrong? Who do you think we have right? Let us know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share, do all that. We'll see you next time.